Hey, it's Game Hydro. Got another video for you about Galaxy Defense Fortress TD, and this video is going to be about the different combos that you can unlock with various turrets. This one actually by request from some fans, and it's good information to have because you know, for the most, I think most folks that play this game just get combo cards, but don't necessarily memorize where the combo cards are from. So we're going to go over how to get every combo, best combos, best turret combos, best loadout, tier list, yada, yada, yada. So grab a pen and paper so you can write down the tier lists if you so desire, or just remember the S tier ones and use those. All right, so first of all, we're going to go to the Sky Guard. Now, if you've never been to these menus before, on the bottom right corner, you want to tap the button that says Card Info. Now, this will tell you all the possible upgrades that you can get with these cards. Scroll down to Star Tier 2 and Star Tier 3, and the teal ones that have the extra glow on the top and the bottom, those are your combo cards. So first one we'll go over is Collapse Explosion. That creates a small black hole after the Skyguard missile explodes. Obviously, this is a combo between a Tier 2 Skyguard and a Tier 1 Gravity Vortex gun. Now, it doesn't necessarily increase the damage of the Skyguard. It just creates the black hole to suck enemies in. Now, it'll have... the effectiveness will be a little bit limited simply just by the massive amount of damage that the Skyguard does, and it could conflict with the burn area, although, no, it could suck enemies into the burn area, which is kind of nice too. I'm going to give that one A tier. I like that one. I would use that. Detonation Thunderbolt over here is a combination between a Tier 3, it's unlocked by Tier 3 Skyguard and Tier 2 Thunderbolt. Generates a small thunderbolt for 5 seconds after Skyguard missiles kill enemies. Not bad. Decent potential for splash damage, but small thunderbolts generally don't do much. I'm giving that a B tier. Path Strike. Skyguard missiles deal damage to enemies along their path. Now, that's a combination of a Tier 2 gun and a Tier 3 Skyguard. I'm giving that one also an A tier, potentially with a potential S- tier, because the Skyguard missiles, they tend to fly a pretty decent distance. They circle around a lot. That could do a crazy amount of splash damage. No, you know what? I'm giving that S tier. That's killer. All right, moving on. We got the laser card info. Scroll down. First up, we got Energy Paralysis. That's a cross between the laser and the lightning. Enemies hit by the laser receive the paralyze effect. That one is pretty decent. Unable to move or attack for a second and a half. That'll have a small effect, but no real damage effect. I'm going to give that one a B+ here. Now, going down, we got Energy Detonation. That's a combination between the laser and the Skyguard, rather. Not the energy, the laser and the Skyguard. All lasers hitting enemies with burn effect will trigger an ignition explosion. All right. Burn effect, take damage per second for 5 seconds. Will trigger an ignition explosion. This has the potential for a lot of splash damage here. I'm going to A tier for this one because the explosion essentially comes from the Skyguard. Convergence Trigger, that's the laser and the beam combined. Tier 3 laser, Tier 2 beam, for those not sure what the 3 and the 2 mean. 30% chance to generate a refracted beam upon the laser hitting enemies. Now, maybe that doesn't sound like a whole lot at first, but if you got your laser upgraded to this point, it's hitting almost every enemy on the screen. That means your screen is going to be absolutely flooded with refracted beams dealing crazy amounts of damage. I'm going to S tier on that one. That one's an all-star. All right, moving on. We got the Disruption Drone next. Scrolling down. We've got the small laser with combination. A sweeping laser is generated in the center of the disruption drone. All right, so that will do some splash damage, but the sweeping lasers don't do a ton of splash damage. But it sticks around for a while, so that one has the potential for a lot of splash damage and a lot of effectiveness against bosses that are weak against energy and enemies weak against energy. I'm going A- tier on that one. Electric field, 30% chance to be inflicted with paralyze. That's a combination between the disruption field and the Tesla coil, by the way. Considering that the disruption field already has a 100% chance of slowing down enemies, the paralysis won't necessarily do a ton of damage. Or, I mean, not damage. It doesn't do any extra damage. It won't necessarily have a big effect. I'm going B tier on that one. That's kind of weak. All right, star tier 3 down here. We got fortress support, which launches an additional set of disruption drones above the fortress. That's a combination with a tier 2 gun, guardian gun, and disruption drones above the fortress. That's where you want the disruption drones to be anyways, because when mobs start coming hardcore, you want to slow them down and stop them from blasting away at your fortress. So I'm going A+, S- there. Field replication. When Railgun shell enters disruption field for the first time, it splits into an additional Railgun shell. Obviously, this is a combo between the disruption drone and the Railgun. I don't care about the Railgun one bit. I know some of my viewers really love the Railgun. I could not care less, and I will absolutely never pick it unless I'm forced to. So I'm going C tier on this one because all it does is create one extra Railgun shell, so who gives a crap? But I know some of you will probably highly disagree with me, and you know what? That's okay. We're allowed to disagree and still be friends. All right, Aeroblast. Here we go. Going down to card info. Let's move downward. This is a tale of two different combos right here. Piercing Blast. That's a combo with the Railgun. Aeroblast shell penetration +1. Oh, wow. +1. Big deal. Honestly, C tier. Maybe C+. But next up, we got Firewheel Summon. And one of my viewers mentioned this. For each enemy hit by the Aeroblast shell explosion, it generates a small Firewheel drone. So by this point, your explosion size will probably be upgraded a good bit. That is a ridiculous amount of Firewheel drones potentially that can float around the screen. So that is crazy splash damage. The Firewheel's crazy splash damage anyway. S tier, S tier, S tier. That is I'm not the biggest fan of Aeroblast, but the Firewheel summon makes the Aeroblast 100,000,000% worth it. All right, down to star tier 3. Now this is a combo with the gravity vortex gun. Aeroblast shell damage increased by 100% and pulls enemies to the center before the explosion. All right, so it sucks enemies to the center for more splash damage, punches above its weight as far as range. Damage really high. That one is pretty good. I'm giving that A tier. Actually, it may be bordering on A+, S-, because the explosion damage and the impact damage for the Aeroblast are very high. And for the gravity vortex gun are very high. All right, moving on. Thunderbolt. Everybody loves the Thunderbolt, right? Let's see if we love the chains. All right. The combos. Everybody loves the chains. Let's talk about the combos. 50% chance to generate one floating mine by the Thunderbolt when it hits enemies. So that is a collaboration with the with the Aeroblast. And 50% chance doesn't sound that great, but Thunderbolts tend to do a lot of area damage. So that potentially is a lot of floating mines on screen. I'm going A tier because that's some good damage. Lightning Trail. After Lightning Strike, leaves a flame trail during flight. That's a collaboration with the Firewheel. Now, that one, I'm not... Obviously, that I don't hate it, but I don't love it a ton either because the fire trails don't do a huge amount of damage unless something flies through them just consistently the entire way down. So I'm going B plus A minus here on the Lightning Trail. And on the Lightning Aftershock, A tier. Now under Star Tier 3, we got Lightning Teleportation. Enemies hit by Lightning Strike or Chain Lightning have a 50% chance to be teleported back a certain distance. Now, at the upgrade level, a Thunderbolt is going to be at here. Especially with Chain Lightning added to the mix. As you know, the Chain Lightning and the Thunderbolt combined at this point are hitting almost all the enemies on screen. Now imagine it's teleporting half of them upward. That is a crazy amount of safety for your fortress. So with that can lengthen the stage a ton for you if you're on a tough level. With that, I'm going S tier. Easy S tier. All right. Moving on, we got the beam. Now, what do we got? Down here, target explosion. Each hit from the beam triggers an explosion, and that explosion is triggered by the sky guard that the beam combines with. AKA ridiculous amounts of DPS. So I'm going A to A plus for target explosion. Simple and effective. Beam lightning. Each hit from a beam has a 30% chance to trigger one chain lightning. So by this point in the upgrade level, the beam is shooting all over the place, which means it'll be shooting chain lightning all over the place. And as we know, chain lightning does a lot of area damage. I'm going S minus for that one. Matrix resonance, so combines with the Tesla coil. Beam releases an expanding electric matrix on hit. So that expanding matrix is essentially the Tesla coil itself, kind of. That's a lot of damage done, though. That not only increases the effectiveness of your beam a ton, it basically it hits things around the beam. Kind of acts similar to the beam explosion. So I'm going A tier on that one. Lots of damage and lots of area. I'm going A plus tier on that one, actually, because of just the fact that the beam naturally targets the area closest to the fortress. All right, Firewheel drone. We love the Firewheel drone over here. Let's move downward. Firewheel ignition has a 20% chance to inflict the burning effect, which causes DPS for 5 seconds. Now, 20% doesn't sound like much, but the Firewheel hits a ton of different enemies. And this is a collaboration with the Sky Guard. I'm giving that one an A because it could be higher, but it's still pretty effective. Next, we got Vortex Firewheel. The Firewheel drone creates a pull effect around it. We're going to go with... I don't know that this will necessarily do more damage. Not that much more. So I'm going to go B plus tier for that one. That one's okay. And then Extra Barrage. For every 15 hits, launches one ring of penetrating bullets. Now, that's a collaboration with the Aeroblast. A ring of Aeroblast bullets is crazy. That could be a ridiculous amount of damage, especially how much the Firewheel drone hits stuff. I'm going A for that one. Oh, all right. Hive. Hive is a underrated one because it attacks enemies close to the fortress. Electro Wasp. Each Wasp attack has a 50% chance to release a high voltage shock at enemies in close range. That's a Tesla coil collab. 50% is decent because wasps don't attack that many enemies unless you add a ton of wasps. I'm going B plus A minus. Excuse me. All right. I get this one a ton because it's a collaboration with the Guardian gun. Projectile fission splits into 7 sub projectiles on hit. Now, this doesn't necessarily, this is worded really poorly. It's not the wasp itself that splits, it's the shot that it fires. But this split into 7 projectiles does a lot of area damage, especially when you have a lot of wasps. And personally, it's won me a lot of rounds that I didn't really have any business winning. I'm going A plus. Swarm Fury. Wasps increase 30% damage after each attack. I'm giving that one an A because it doesn't really sound that impressive, but it actually works really well for mini bosses. And if the stage boss gets close enough to have wasps attack it, it works well for that as well. But primarily makes mini bosses it takes short work, which is especially useful against a Sky Golem, which is the most annoying mini boss in the entire game by far. All right, and that is a collaboration with, God, I always forget if that's the laser or the beam. The beam, okay. Yeah, because the beam and the laser, for whatever reason, I always blend those two in my head. All right, next up we got the Railgun. The infamous Railgun. Piercing mark. Enemies hit by all railgun shells receive physical vulnerable effect. That is a collaboration with your Guardian gun. Physical vulnerable means physical resistance is reduced by 25% for 5 seconds. I mean, that one is okay, but there's not really enough splash damage to justify that. I'm going to B. Secondary minefield. Railgun shell releases 1 floating mine on hit. So that's a collaboration with Aeroblast, and if you've used Aeroblast and unlocked the floating mines, you know what that's about. That's okay. I'm going B. Piercing ricochet. That's a collaboration with the Firewheel. All railgun shells, penetration +1, reflection +1. Oh, man. That one I'm not impressed with either. I'm going B. Sorry. I'm not impressed with any facet of the railgun whatsoever. I don't know why it's unlockable so far into the game. Let's see what the Tesla coils got for us. Let's scroll down. We got electric enhancement. All electric damage plus 80%. That's a collaboration with lightning, obviously. 80% is a pretty big damage boost, but none of this changes the fundamentals of how either one of these things works. So I'm going to go B. It's not that impressive. Cooperative beam. During charging, Tesla coil releases 2 refracted beams. That is actually underratedly good because the beam is pretty damn effective anyway, and so you're just getting more beams out of that. I'm going A, possibly A+. That could really have a strong effect in a crowded field of enemies. All right, Star Tier 3, spinning laser. Tesla coil releases 1 spinning laser on hit. Obviously, it's a collaboration with the laser. Now, that's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one. And if you got your Tesla coil upgrade a ton for splash damage, this could actually put a bunch of lasers on screen. A to A minus. All right, next up and lastly, we got the gravity vortex gun. So first off, we got field reflection. All gravitational fields can reflect, and this is a combo with the Firewheel. That is, excuse me. Sorry. That's okay, I guess. Going B. Star tier 3, though, we got field disruption. Gravitational field inflicts disruption on hit. And that causes damage based on stacks, up to 5 stacks for 10 seconds. Now, the disruption damage isn't quite that high. I don't feel like the gravity ball has enough to justify this. I feel like it's far more effective coming from the disruptor drone because, which this is collaboration with, because the disruption drone has a massive field of damage anyway. So if you're casting disruption on half the enemies on screen, it's going to be more effective. B tier. All right, double fission. This is a collab with the Aeroblast. Gravitational field splits into 2 small gravitational fields at the end. I mean, the gravitational field does a lot of damage. You probably have a black hole at this point, but that isn't changing the fundamentals of how it works that much. I'm going B+ on this just because the DPS is super high for the gravitational field. All right, that's all the combos that we have in Galaxy Defense right now. There may be more added to the game at some other point, but right now this is all we got. But thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the videos, and be sure to leave comments if you want more content about Galaxy, whatever the hell this game's called, Galaxy Defense TD something. God. All right. Yeah, it's late. Catch you later.